Welcome back to the Gridiron Guys YouTube channel, and today we're too early NFL predictions. This will include the MVP, Comeback Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and Rookie awards as well. So let's get right into it, and let's start with the MVP. And Kevin, right now, who is your MVP frontrunner?
All right, right now, I think everybody's got the same idea for MVP frontrunner. You got to look at the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson and the MVP before him in Patrick Mahomes. And personally, if I had to take a guess, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to win it this year. Uh, I just don't believe in like the back-to-back MVP. I feel like it's too hard. But I think Lamar and Pat Mahomes will both have a great year. I just think Pat Mahomes probably.
The only issue with Mahomes and Lamar is they're phenomenal, and we expect them to be phenomenal. So for them to be a second-time MVP, they have to go beyond what they've already done. And I think Russell Wilson, has he ever won MVP? I'm pretty sure he has not.
He has not.
He's been in the voting, but we expect greatness from Russell, but we haven't seen MVP Russell. So I think if Russell comes out and starts to ball out even more, with probably one of his better wide receiver corps he's had in his career, and good running backs too, offensive line's getting there, I think Russell has a really good chance to get in there too. He was in there last year, but Seattle wasn't like that dominant team that Kansas City and Baltimore was when both the Mahomes and Lamar were healthy. But I really like Russell to stay in there too. But we also have our two sleeper candidates in Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins. Why are these two guys over guys like Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady?
Well, I think you said it pretty well with like Russell Wilson, Pat Mahomes, and Lamar. We know what they can do. So for them to win this award, they have to go above and beyond. And we haven't really seen much well, I'll start with Josh Allen. We haven't really seen much other than a big progression each year from Josh Allen. And in the trend he's going in, he could have a great year this year now that he has Stephon Diggs and potentially one of the best teams in the AFC. I think if he can bring a great season to Buffalo, he could easily win this. And same thing with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins played really well last year, really undernoticed. And if he can continue the same thing and lead the Vikings, especially without a guy like Stephon Diggs and more of a young team, and just show he's a great leader, which he is, I think he could also be a dark horse.
Yeah, a lot of it just comes down to how much these guys can win, because Kirk had great stats last year, but the problem was Minnesota was a wild card. If Minnesota was 13-3 and the 1 seed in the NFC, they would have gotten a lot more hype. And for Josh Allen, he's not going to have the best passing numbers, but it's more so about Buffalo winning. If Buffalo gets a bye, 2 or a 1 seed, and he puts up great stats and has a really good on the ground game, he could have more of like a Cam Newton type MVP season, where he's not going to be throwing 50 touchdowns, but his team's going to win 14, 13 games, and he's going to play really well when he needs to play really well.
Mm-hmm.
It just boils down to like which of these teams is going to outperform expectations, because frankly, all these quarterbacks are going to have fantastic seasons next year. It's just who exceeds what we expect them to do, and I think Kirk Cousins and Josh Allen aren't getting the recognition or, I guess, MVP hype that they deserve for the next season. But moving on to our comeback players of the year, these are our 5 candidates. We have Todd Gurley, Matthew Stafford, Big Ben, Rob Gronkowski, and AJ Green. And we think these are the 5 most likely candidates because, first of all, these are guys who've been there and been really good and played at a high level. But right now, none of these players, besides Stafford, is expected to do much of anything. I mean, Big Ben, I don't remember the last time we saw Big Ben play at a high level. It was probably that playoff game against Jacksonville a few years ago. Gronk has been out of the league for ages. Gurley looked like a 35-year-old running back last year. And I don't think we've had a full season out of AJ Green in 3 to 4 years. Which of these guys do you think is most well fit for their like team and outlook next year to have a dominant season, like bringing back the books?
I'll start with Big Ben. I think Big Ben, this is his year. This is a make or break year for him, and I think he knows that this is going to be the year that determines the rest of his career. Because if he has a bad year and he is healthy for the whole year, this is going to be probably the end, if not close to the end, of his tenure in Pittsburgh. And then I think you got to look at a guy in Todd Gurley. He's going to a very underrated Falcons offense where he could do a lot of damage. So I think he might have a lot of productivity there.
Yeah, I think guys, you're gonna have a harder time winning. At least starting with Matthew Stafford. Stafford's put up a lot of good years. Even last year, before he got hurt, he played well. Stafford's gonna have to play really, really well to win the award. And I think he's just in there because missing a year due to injury counts as comeback player of the year. But I think of all these five guys, Stafford has the hardest. And I'd say the
Mm.
guy with the second worst odds is AJ Green. Just because he's
They're
not gonna
not
be the
going to,
focal point of this
yeah.
offense. They have a bunch of young talent on there. AJ's kind of that guy that if he plays really well, he still has a lot of good years ahead of him, but he can't stay on the field.
He can,
He's going to have to stay healthy for 16 games and find his way amongst a young roster that he hasn't really had to before. So I think AJ's going to have a tougher route to do this too. I like Gronk for honestly comeback player of the year. I think with the Tampa system, there's not going to be much emphasis on guarding Gronk because it's going to be like, oh, it's that washed tight end. He has been out of the league for 2 years. They have the best wide receiver tandem in the league. That easily can allow Gronk to dominate. One-on-one coverage, if this man's healthy and he's in shape, he's going to be picking that apart the whole entire year.
yep, I completely agree. I think AJ Green really does have a tough road to winning this award because of all the youth they have in Cincinnati, and he's gonna play a lot, but he's gonna have more of a mentor role to like T Higgins and all those young
John Ross and
receivers.
Tyler
Yeah,
Boyd, yeah.
and I also think Gronk for me is in the middle because I can see him going and having a great like season with Tampa where he catches a ton of touchdowns from Tom for the same reason that you said they're gonna be like, oh, he's washed. But I could also see him fizzling out if not used right, or if like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin steal all the touchdowns and targets.
Like look at Jay Howard last year. He had a phenomenal rookie season for a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Who's up there for best tight end probably next to Evan Ingram. They both had great seasons. But this year just got lost in the shuffle in Tampa. He didn't catch passes half the games. Like,
Yeah, Bruce Arians is not a fan of him.
yeah, we'll see what he thinks of Gronk. I like Gurley, though, for the award, too. I think he's a great chance to win because, same thing for Gronk, the focus is not going to be on Gurley. No one focuses on stopping the Atlanta ground game. The focus is on stopping
Julio.
Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan because they're going to be playing that dome. It's going to be a bunch of air raids. But Gurley is a very underrated pass catcher, and I think he's going to fit really well into that offense. They have a good offensive line, and even Devonta Freeman that no one thinks is any good. No one's signing him. He put up some half decent stats last year, and if Gurley can even get to those stats, he'd be considered for the award. But I think Todd Gurley is a far better player than Devonta Freeman. And I think he can honestly not replicate that season he had 2 years ago on the dominant Rams team because the offensive line's not comparable. But I could see Gurley putting up 1,500 scrimmage yards, 12 touchdowns, and he'd walk away with this award if he shows fresh legs. The volume's gonna be there for him. It just does he have it still?
Mm-hmm. Completely agree.
We'll see. I would say though our front runners are Gurley, Big Ben, and Gronk, and Stafford and AJ Green have to have basically Pro Bowl level seasons to get into the award. But now our defensive player of the year, we have our reigning champion Stephon Gilmore, was as dominant a corner we've seen since Darrelle Revis days for one season, absolutely anchoring that 14-2 New England defense. But I think, especially for Gilmore, it's hard to repeat these awards because people expect the highest level play from you. So if you produce what you did last year, you're not going to win it. I think Tre'Davious White may be looking to replicate the season Gilmore had last year, but I think this year the award is going to be going to a defensive player, specifically on the defensive line. I don't know why it's a defensive player. Aaron Donald and TJ Watt, I think, are on situations where they can really dominate games, and I could see either of them putting up massive stats on overall good units that can lead them to the award. Tell me why you love TJ Watt as your favorite candidate, Kevin.
Yeah, I think TJ Watt could win this one because You look at Pittsburgh's defense, and all around they're a top five defense in the NFL, and it all starts with one player, and that player is T.J. Watt. I think he had around 15ish sacks last year. He's shown a lot of improvement every single year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps showing improvement. And I think he'll edge out a guy like Aaron Donald who I every year is going to be on the ballot, whether he's in the top five or not. He'll be voted by somebody. I think he edges him out in his ability to get pressure off the edge, whereas like I know Donald gets it more up the middle, but TJ Watt I feel like is going to be playing in a lot of games that are going to be shown more on TV, if you know what I mean. Like
He's going to have
there's going
that
to be a lot of
recognition because that
yeah,
Steelers unit overall, it's going to be dominant. Like, their defense is going to be better than it was last year, which is saying a
some
lot. With Devin Bush improving, Mika Fitzpatrick, they have a great defensive line. We love Alex Highsmith. And I think the Rams' defensive lines, it's not as good as, not even nearly as good as Pittsburgh's. And just from a purely talent perspective, Donald is double the player TJ Watt is. But TJ Watt is dominant player, not dominant players around him, has very good players around him, which allows him to dominate. Where Aaron Donald, every single play is getting double teamed and triple teams
mm-hmm.
because the Rams, they've lost Dante Fowler and Michael Brockers. Their only other really two great defensive linemen. TJ Watt is primed for single teams. He's going to get 15 sacks plus. He's going to dominate. The Steelers' defense is probably the best in the league next year. I am with Kevin on this. I really see TJ Watt as our favorite because he's not like when you think best defensive player in the league. TJ Watt does not come up in that like that's not your first thought. It's probably like a bigger name like Clowney or
Khalil
Donald,
Mack.
Khalil Mack. But TJ Watt's going to put up phenomenal stats for the second straight year, and that success of the Pittsburgh defense is going to really give him the recognition that he deserves. But look at guys like Tre'Davious White and even Jalen Ramsey to produce really, really good corner seasons, which are really hard to do. They have to be locked down as Gilmore was for them to even be considered. But it's too hard to repeat for Gilmore. He's got to have like 8 interceptions, something crazy for him to be considered again.
Well, yeah, I think. Sorry to cut you off, but what Gilmore did so well last year was he helped basically anchor that Patriots team and brought them to where they got to. And I think TJ Watt has that ability to do that this year, which is why he's my favorite. Whereas I don't think Aaron Donald can really do that with a kind of a weird group of defensive players and Jalen Ramsey on the Rams. And I think Tre'Davious White and TJ Watt have a great chance of doing that for two like young defenses that could lead the league in all these categories. And that's where I think Gilmore could also repeat just by leading and being the best player on a top defense. I think
Yeah,
that's where.
I would 100% agree. And this is a very hot take I'm about to drop. But an extremely sleeper pick for this award is Isaiah Simmons on Arizona. Just because, I'm just saying this
He's a rookie,
because
though.
he's
There's
a
no way.
rookie. But
That
I
would never
think
happen.
I think the way he plays might allow him to stuff the stat sheet on a more meaningless defense that's going to be in a lot of high scoring games.
Nah, I don't.
But it's a hot take.
I think that's a little too hot because he's a rookie. But I think somebody else in Arizona that could definitely win it is Chandler Jones. If the Cardinals have a great season and prove to be all the hype they're getting, Chandler Jones could realistically win that because he's put up top 5 sack numbers every year for the past like 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's going to be hard because he's going to be the best edge rusher, and he doesn't really have that running mate to help him get those single teams. We'll see. I think these are our top candidates, though. But now moving to the offensive side of the ball, for Offensive Player of the Year, there are some elite playmakers, and our top 3 candidates are Michael Thomas, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley. And we don't really have them in a specific order just because they're all so talented. They're all setting NFL records at such a young age that I think any of them could do it. It's going to be hardest for McCaffrey because we expect so much from McCaffrey after last year. I think it's almost impossible for him to win the award because he has to replicate what he did last year, and I think that's impossible, honestly. His production, his total touches, his just sheer yardage, to put that up again, it's going to be insanely difficult. I think Saquon has a better chance of winning the award this year for Offensive Player of the Year than McCaffrey because the expectations for him are lower just because he's coming off an injury. And if Saquon puts up what McCaffrey did last year and McCaffrey puts up the same stats, award's going to go to Saquon just because that jump in productivity and it'd probably lead to an improved Giants roster. I mean, there's so many playmakers in the league, it's just hard to decide. This is a tough award. It's really a crapshoot.
Yeah, this is a tough award because if you win MVP, you can't win it, and most of the people that are going to be winning MVP are going to be the ones that can't win this award. Basically, quarterback's going to go to MVP, and the best of the rest of the offense is going to win this award, and that's where I think it'll come down to Barkley or Thomas. I just think CMC winning it last year hurts his odds at repeating again. Plus, with a new system, it could take him a little bit to get used to. He might not put up the same numbers. That's why I like Saquon in a new system,
Better
an
offensive
improved
line,
offensive
too.
line. I like Saquon's odds a lot here, but I also like Michael Thomas because the Saints are playing in a lot of dome games this year. They're going to be playing in a lot of meaningful games, which means a big air raid, especially from Drew Brees. Who knows, maybe Drew Brees' last year. He could have some great odds at MVP even. I don't know.
I also like Michael Thomas for a wide receiver because I think it's extremely difficult to win at a wide receiver just because you're getting the number one corner every single game. So even if it's a bad defensive unit, you may have a tough matchup. Also, Michael Thomas has to replicate what he's been doing in the past, and that's catch an obscene number of passes. And they've honestly, the Saints have added a lot of targets over like the last year or two, with Jared Cook starting to play really well, and the addition of Emmanuel Sanders. That target share might not be there, but I also think that's going to benefit Michael Thomas because he'll be seeing some more single coverage with a finally competent wide receiver two next to him. Because for the majority of his career, he's been playing with Willie Snead, maybe a little after Willie Snead, but Ted Ginn and guys like they're escaping
Oh,
my name
Ginn
right now.
actually left.
He's just been playing with lackluster wide receiver twos, and I think that he'll benefit from an improved supporting cast, and hopefully Kamara steps up because he was a disappointment last year.
Yeah, I think sorry, but I think two sleepers here. Uh, and this is all based on how the team does as a whole. But if the team plays well, I think Chris Godwin or Mike Evans could also have a chance at this award.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think it's tough for a wide
It is
receiver to
tough for
win
a
it.
wide receiver. It's kind of a running
And
back's
then
award. Dalvin Cook too.
Dalvin Cook could play well if Minnesota really dominates again. But this award may likely go to the runner-up QB. If we have a similar situation to last year, it could be a guy like Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes who takes this award because they didn't win MVP. But we're just talking about skill players, and I think these are our three favorites. But if other skill players that are dominant have tremendous seasons and their team succeeds due to them, you could see guys like even Zeke winning this award, stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah,
I really think it just boils down to a player exceeding expectations at their position and really carrying them in big games. Like what we mean by that, just to clarify, is say it's a Monday night game, Giants vs Eagles, and the Giants are exceeding expectations. They're 7-7, and it's like week 15, and Saquon runs for 250. That's the guy's gonna be winning the award. Like last year, McCaffrey won the award because in the beginning of the year he was carrying that Carolina team. They were 4-2, and they were good. It was just McCaffrey being good. The position player has to like running backs aren't deemed important anymore, but McCaffrey made them important for the Panthers last year because he catches the ball too. So the players got to help their team win and be productive. That's what the offensive player of the year has to do. But now, moving on to rookies. Now, for rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, and defensive rookie of the year, there are a lot of options. So let's start with offensive rookie of the year, Kevin. Who do you expect to win that award?
all right. So after last year's absolute bogus, I still think Josh Jacobs should have won it. I think everybody knows he should have won it, but it's a quarterback run league, so it doesn't matter what. If the running back and the quarterback have good seasons, tie goes to the quarterback. So obviously, I got Joe Burrow as my favorite because they want the legacy, all that. I still think he'll have a great year. He's starting from day one, which I think helps his chances over a guy like Tua and Herbert because I don't think they start right away. I think they have to wait a little bit. But I also think a dark horse candidate could be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. who is going to a great offense in Kansas City, and he's got great fantasy potential, great potential in general.
Yeah, I mean, we like Clyde a lot because all the other running backs, they just didn't get into great spots where they're going to be getting
They're not going to be
all the
starting.
carries week one. Jonathan Taylor at Indianapolis, he's not
That's
going to be
going to
getting
be
all
a
those
split
carries.
backfield now.
Exactly. Edwards, I mean, at least I guess we'll call him Clyde. The triple name really, it's a killer. But we'll call Clyde, he's going into a Kansas City backfield where we thought Damian Williams was going to be the guy, but they obviously didn't think that. I think he'll be getting the most touches out of any rookie running back, and there is no focus on stopping that Chiefs ground game. He's going to get dump off screens for days, and he's a really tough runner between the tackles. I mean, because teams against Kansas City, they're nickel, dime, quarter looks all day, smaller guys in the field, and Edwards just runs those guys over. He runs nasty. I really think he's going to be able to be uber productive, like a Kamara rookie season type, where he gets like 200 touches, but he's averaging like 6 yards per carry. I think he's not going to be a 300 touch back year one, but I think he's going to put up really, really, really good numbers. And I think he's a sleeper for offensive rookie of the year. But I mean, it's only really because there's not going to be another quarterback who's going to play the entire year. So if Burrow plays the whole year, he wins rookie of the year. I think a guy like Edwards or Clyde, Clyde wins offensive rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the defensive side of the ball, there are a lot more
A
options.
lot of people.
I think that's because for defensive players, at least, no matter the system you're going into, if it's a high draft pick, you're going to be starting. Like, you draft a guy in the first round on defense, he is playing every single snap. Isaiah Simmons, Chase Young, Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray, Xavier McKinney. Corners is hard to win the awards because your stat sheet's not going to be that big. But safeties, linebackers, and defensive linemen are all – there's a ton of guys who could win this award. But I think we have our favorites as our favorite three as Chase Young, Kenneth Murray, and Isaiah Simmons. And that's just because these guys are going to be dominant. Starting with Isaiah Simmons, Kevin, what do you love about Isaiah Simmons that you think he's our favorite, or is it Chase Young?
I think my favorite is Chase Young, just simply because he was a monster in college, and I think sacks translate. But I like Isaiah Simmons' chances, depending on how they use him. I know they're going to use him as of right now, like they did at Clemson. They're going to use him in a way that he'll benefit against any team he's playing. So, like, if they're playing the Seahawks, he can play in kind of like a QB spy, like middle linebacker type of role. Kind of a free range, do what you need to do. And then there's teams like the Rams where you're not really worried about Jared Goff scrambling. So, all right, we'll throw him into more of like a safety linebacker. So I think he really benefits stat sheet wise going to the Cardinals. But that's where I think Chase Young overall will have more dominance against offensive linemen in the NFC East.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps Chase Young that he's coming to a defensive line that's already pretty good.
Yeah.
Washington was middle of the pack or above average last year in most defensive line categories. And I think helps him not face as many double teams as he would have as if this was pretty bad. The only thing that I think is going to hurt Chase Young is Washington is like a defensive line, but overall their defense is going to rank out poorly just because they're a terrible secondary. So if he puts up good numbers, but the Washington defense getting toasted every week, it may be hard for people to vote for him. But I think he's a 10-sack guy year one at least. He's going to be playing against some pretty good offensive tackles in the NFC East a lot, but I mean, this guy's a freak in a good way. He's he's got the speed, power, he's got the hands. He's everything you can look for. He has no character concerns. Ron Rivera is a defensive guy. He's going to know how to use him. And,
Del Rio.
I mean, I think he's going to have a great year one. But
Yeah.
you never know. Sometimes just it doesn't work out. He may take a year or two. And that's why we have our third sleeper candidate in Kenneth Murray. Kevin, tell us your hot take for the year on Kenneth Murray.
Oh yeah, one more thing about Chase Young before I get into Kenneth Murray. As a Raider fan, I watched Khalil Mack have 4 or 5 sacks his rookie year, and then we hired Jack Del Rio as our head coach, and Jack Del Rio is now the defensive coordinator for the Redskins. Del Rio, a defensive guru, helped fix Khalil Mack. I think that next year he put up like 12, 15 sacks, something like that. He's a great defensive coach. He'll get a lot out of Chase Young. But my hot take for Kenneth Murray is I think he could lead the league in tackles as a freshman. Uh,
Rookie, not a freshman.
Rookie. Yeah, not a freshman. But he's a tackling machine, and he's going to have the same abilities that he did at Oklahoma. He's going to roam the field, and that defense is just amazing. They just needed a middle linebacker, and I think they got him right here.
Exactly.
He's all over the field.
And he's a 3-down linebacker. He has the NFL build. He can get in there. He can get sideline to sideline. He can blitz. He can do it all. And I think he has the edge over a guy like Isaiah Simmons, who's more talented, because that Chargers unit is going to be really good. And when they see Kenneth Murray making winning plays on a great defense, it just shows more of an impact. These plays are significant. Like the Chargers, if they have some good QB play, are going to be a playoff team. And if Murray's making significant plays down the stretch, sideline to sideline tackles in key spots, I think the award's his just because he's making plays that are impacting wins and losses instead of just the stat sheet. And that's why we like him for our sleeper player.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Darius Leonard.
Yeah.
That type of an impact.
I mean, that's high praise, but he can definitely put up similar stats to that in a year or two. And then I think this is the deepest group. There's so many defensive players that are going to make impacts. There was a lot of safeties drafted that are playmakers all over the board. We don't have to get into them specifically. If a defensive lineman has great production, a guy like Derek Brown, Kinlaw, Uter Matos, these are all guys that can win the award. Defense is tough. There's a lot of guys who can win the award. But we have Joe Burrow as a Rookie of the Year. I think we'd be shocked if he doesn't win Rookie of the Year because he's going to put up good stats with the great supporting cast. And Kyler Murray showed us last year, you could have a terrible record and put up pretty good stats, and that's our Rookie of the Year. I think that's going to be Burrow this year. The Bengals won't be that good, but he'll put up good stats. And I think just because Tua, Herbert, and Jordan Love aren't playing, Joe Burrow basically is our default Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it's a pretty obvious choice at offense.
Yeah, and that concludes all our awards. I mean, these are so unpredictable. There's always players that just emerge out of nowhere.
Injuries too.
Even undrafted guys who come in and just take snaps, rolls, touches. But I think these are our likely awards. I think we have some good sleeper odds. And that concludes the video. Make sure to stay tuned. This will probably be coming out this weekend. And stay tuned for 2 more draft grade videos in the next week or so to conclude our 8 division draft grades. Those will be out in the next week or 2. Make sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And give us your feedback down below. Hot takes, who you think's going to win the awards. If you were a betting man, who would you put your money on?